Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, I'm Witch. It's Halloween and I thought I would do something witchy. We are going to read It Gets Worse, a collection of essays, but we're not going to read the essays. No. We're going to read a note from Shane. My mom has always been a huge inspiration for me. And if you read this whole book, you know what a crucial part of my life she has been. She has always wanted to pursue her dream of being an author. But between working multiple jobs to feed her kids and all the chaos that comes with being a single mother, she never had the time. So as a gift to her, I decided to hand over the final chapters of this book to her. I told her that she could write whatever she wanted, and I wouldn't change a thing. So without further ado, here is a special essay wrote by Teresa, my mother, my friend, and now a published author. I love you, Mom. I have never been the one to call attention to myself because I've always been insecure about my appearance. Not too long ago, the very thought of one of my son's fans running up to me and asking me to take a picture with them would give me a full-on panic attack. But one night, 10 years ago, something happened that gave me a glimpse into what the future held. What a night it was. Shane was always a very shy child and stayed to himself a lot. He had a few close friends, but I never really saw him with too many people at one time. I was a single mom who worked a lot of hours and didn't get to spend much time with my kids. Shane stayed very busy with his schoolwork and remained close to home. One day he told me to hold a specific night open on my calendar so I could go to his drama production at his high school. I really didn't know what this was all about, but I was very excited to go. I requested the early shift so I could get off work in time. I arrived early and decided to sit in the auditorium and just relax. There was a group of kids sitting next to my left, and I'm not going to lie, they looked a bit rough to be waiting to watch a drama production. You should never judge a book by its cover, but I still wrote a brief last will and testament on a paper napkin just in case. Some other kids were busy setting up the stage for the night, and I noticed Shane walking out holding a small desk lamp. Shane had thick, long hair he would hide behind when he walked. I thought, well, maybe he's on the set design team. It didn't matter to me because I was so proud of anything he did. Soon the auditorium started to fill, and I began to wonder where my other sons, Jacob and Jared, were. They were a handful, and I didn't want to even imagine where they might be. I had saved them seats and prayed they hadn't forgotten. Just as I was about to give up on them, I heard loud laughter, and of course everyone turned around to see where the noise was coming from. Sure enough, it was Jacob and Jared wrestling with each other down the aisle. Oh, Jesus, I prayed, please don't let them trip and kill some grandma with a cane. They eventually made it to their seats. My first inclination was to yell at them, but before I could get a word out, a cloud of smoke escaped from Jared's mouth and hit me in the face, and the smell of weed almost knocked me out. Jacob, Jared, I whispered sternly, how could you do this? Well, they just laughed even harder, and I was resolved to let it go. As I said, the crowd looked a little rough, so I'm not sure anyone even noticed. On with the show. The auditorium was bursting with excited students, parents, and sleeping grandparents. This was a feeling of anticipation in the audience that I didn't quite understand, but even I started to feel it moving through my body. Of course, it could have also been the weed vapor hovering over me. Either way, I was enjoying this moment. The curtains parted to reveal the set of the classroom. I recognized a few of Shane's friends and was pretty sure I was correct in thinking Shane was involved in the set design because he was not in the ensemble. As the scene started to play out, I heard whispers from the group of rough kids sitting next to me. "Where is he?" And "I think he comes out soon." I wondered what they were talking about, but I was too scared to ask. Instead, I clutched my last will and testament and hoped to God they weren't planning a shootout. About that time, I heard one of the kids whisper, "There he is." I looked up and saw Shane walking on stage wearing a baggy, hooded sweatshirt and walking with a swagger I had never seen him do before. The group of kids stood next to me and cheered as if a rock star had just come on stage. I was so confused about why Shane was up there, but even more confused about why so many people were screaming for him. Shane went into character, and with all the confidence of Kanye West snatching Taylor Swift's VMA awards, he swooped down on one of the girls on stage and made his advance. What is this? I wondered. How did my shy, little insecure son become this hysterical, larger-than-life character? For the next 10 minutes, I watched the audience laugh, scream, and have so much fun. It all seemed to center around Shane. Those rough kids sitting next to me were having the best time, and those intimidating looks I initially observed were now completely lit up. I didn't quite understand what was happening, but I knew it was something big. As I glanced over at Jacob and Jared, it appeared the weed had worn off, but they too had looks of wonder on their faces. Shane was the brother who stayed to himself, certainly didn't show any resemblance to the cool guys on SNL, and just that quick moment in time, an inspiring awe and amazement in his older siblings. There was a brief intermission which allowed me a brief moment to absorb what had just taken place. My mind wandered back to those Saturday nights Shane and I would spend together. He wasn't yet the age when he would spend time on the weekends with his friends. We looked forward to those simple but special times together. The first thing we would do would be drop off Jarrett at Knott's Berry Farm so he could hang out with his friends. That was the cool thing back then. Maybe it still is. Some things are timeless. After dropping him off, we would go buy whatever the latest CD was. We started with Now That's What I Call Music, Volume 1, if you can believe that. There must have been on Volume 3001 at this point. We would drive for hours, listening, laughing, and dreaming of what might the future hold for us. With a plunk, I suddenly brought back to reality as Jared plopped himself down in the seat with half a churro sticking out of his mouth. The show continued. After a couple of short skits that Shane wasn't in, the curtain opened to a family living room scene, and again the audience began to call out Shane's name. I couldn't wait to see what was going to happen next. It was a hysterical skit about a family from Minnesota, and Shane played the father. I haven't laughed so hard in years, and I definitely could have used some bladder protection. Watching my son shine on stage, I could feel the many hardships from the previous 9 years melt away. Each day had its share of worries, and it had started to catch up with me. That evening I laughed so hard and was so surprised. I felt new life flow through my body. As the show came to an end and all of the students came forward to bow, again I had the joy of hearing the auditorium rumble with shouts of, "Shane! Shane!" shy little guy who I worried about every day stood very proudly on stage, and his face lit up any darkness that tried to squeeze in. Jared and Jacob were shouting, "You're the man, Shane! You the man!" As if the earth had turned a new direction and I got to be a part of it. The excitement continued, and I watched the students step down from the stage and all the kids in the audience run toward Shane. For a second, I considered throwing myself in front of the rough kids. But by then I realized they were as wonderful and special as every student in the building. I slowly made my way out of the lobby as Shane's friends ran up to me and gave me lots of hugs. For Jared, Jacob, and myself, we had just the most amazing night. There were no worries, there were no fears, there were no sadness, just a joy that seemed to embrace us as a family. After several moments, I finally got to hug Shane and get through the crowd. With tears in my eyes, I told him it had been the best night of my life. As he looked at me, I could almost hear his mind thinking, "It's only the beginning, Mom." I decided to let him enjoy the rest of the evening and head out to my car. As I made my way down the auditorium steps, I turned back around. Time seemed to stand still just for a moment, and I heard God's voice say in my ear, "Tonight, you witnessed an auditorium full of love for Shane. One day, Teresa, you will witness the world loving him." I got to my car and wept. Not tears of pain, but for tears of joy and for hope. Nearly 10 years have passed since that night at Lakewood High School, and every time I see a crowd gather around Shane and express such love, I think of that special evening that would forever change our lives. I've met so many of Shane's friends since he started on YouTube, and every one of them is more full of love than the last. Granted, the first time I was recognized in public was not such a lovely experience. One day I was walking around the mall and was stopped by an angry-looking woman. She pointed at the shirt I was wearing that happened to have Shane's face on it and said, "I know who you are. Your son is disgraceful." I stood there in shock for a moment. Then after a few seconds I started laughing and quickly texted Shane, "I got recognized, son. I'm so excited." I still have my Shane Dawson t-shirt, and every time I wear it, I think of that lady and get the biggest smile on my face. One person's disgrace is another person's hero. It got worse. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and happy Halloween! Love you guys. And I'll see you. Yes, you, even my one hater. You can send this video to your hater. See you guys in my next video.